You know, it's easy to do a late Sunday night recap show when Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson play a classic. But when we're up late recapping week 2 after a Sunday night stinker, that's when you really know that football season we're in the swing of it for real. Hey there, welcome to the Athletic Football Show week 2 recap. I am Dave Helman. Very quick programming note. Robert had to step away for a personal reason this week. He will be back shortly. Nevertheless, we press on, and I'm joined by a guy, Derrik Klassen. Derrik, I think, I'm like programmed to want to react to the most recent thing that happened, right? This feels like a week where we can bypass Vikings-Falcons. I don't know. While you were prepping for the show, I don't know how close of an eye you had on this game, but I just don't feel like the people are clamoring for a lot of info coming off of that 22-6 win.
I'm kind of thankful for it. I mean, this early in the season when there's no bye weeks, it's just there's so many games holding. And the way the scheduling worked this week, where we had 9 of the games in the early slate and then only 3, I think, in the afternoon slate, because I think they were really trying to squeeze out everything of the Eagles-Chiefs rematch, obviously. So the way that the scheduling works, totally okay with being able to skip over a Sunday nighter for now.
This entire day felt designed around maximizing Eagles at Chiefs. Like from the fact that Fox did all of their programming live from Kansas City to the fact that not a whole lot was going up against it in the second window. And even like the Sunday night game winding down from it. Interesting from the Penix JJ perspective, but not the banger that you get used to seeing from Sunday Night Football. So let's lead with that, because that was clearly the storyline that we wanted to focus on, what the league wanted us to focus on. Philadelphia Eagles rematching with the Kansas City Chiefs in just the second game of the season since Super Bowl 59. We have already gotten plenty wrong in the early going of this season, and we're going to keep getting stuff wrong. I'm just going to take a chance to pat ourselves ever so slightly on the back and say, this game went damn near exactly how I expected it to go.
Yeah, we're the team that just has more talent, kind of did some... I will say, if anything, I thought the Eagles would maybe be a little bit more explosive. Like, I thought some of what they were in week 1 was just like we're trying to get our feet under us to get a new offensive coordinator and stuff like that. And maybe that's just like how they're going to be early in the season. But I expected a little bit more from them. But yeah, the more talented team just choked out the better team. And again, we said, like, okay, the Eagles will probably win this game and it just won't be as convincing as the Super Bowl, which is like basically exactly what happened in this game.
So the Eagles beat the Chiefs 20-17. And yeah, it felt like a boa constrictor over the final 10 or so minutes of this game. But that's pretty much what I came away with. I mean, Patrick Mahomes was pressured 10% less often than he was in the Super Bowl. I do feel like the Chiefs offensive line acquitted itself well for the most part. Like Josh Simmons, that is a nice week 2 against the Super Bowl champions. Kingsley Suamataia, there were some ups, there were some downs, but like from a protection standpoint,
they gave him a chance in this game, which was not in the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl,
you can win with this from a protection standpoint.
Yeah, in the Super Bowl, Mahomes had nothing. And I think we saw, which we highlighted again kind of in the previous show, that like because the run game had absolutely no teeth to it, they felt like they could only RPO stuff. Like it just felt like the game plan was so limited in the Super Bowl. They at least felt like they could try more things in this game and at least give Patrick Mahomes a little bit more of a chance. That then brings us to the receiving core, which I still have a lot of issues with. Like,
well, how could you not?
I posted a clip today. There was, I forget exactly when in the game it was. I think it might have been in the second quarter, where they try to get Hollywood Brown motioning in from the right side, and then he's supposed to like stop where he is and pivot back out towards the sideline. Cooper DeJean literally puts him in the ground. And look, Cooper DeJean's a great player. He's a strong player. He's a really good tackler, all that stuff. You should not be, as a starting receiver, like on the ground right after a motion like that. And like I've already said before that, like, I don't love the way that the Chiefs have built this receiver core, and they've got too many of those guys. And I think when you run up against these really good defenses, these really, really physical defenses, this is the kind of game that you can end up playing. And this is the game I was scared of. Hopefully for them against lesser defenses, it's not as big of an issue.
They did have some deep shots open up for Tyquan Thornton at the end of this game. Patrick Mahomes missed him badly on a deep ball late and then made up for it with a 49-yard touchdown. So it is interesting that a couple very explosive shots finally opened up at the end of this game. But the rest of this was exactly what we said we were worried about, where Xavier Worthy gets hurt, Rashee Rice is suspended for another month. Patrick Mahomes goes 1 of 4 on attempts 20-plus yards down the field. 59% of his pass attempts were within 10 yards. Like, he's throwing to the sticks or less almost all the time. And surprise, surprise, Mahomes, phenomenal with his feet in this game, made a lot of stuff happen as a runner. Once again, lowered his shoulder and
he decked Makuba.
He put the boomstick down. Like, I get, I mean, I don't know. I wonder what that's going to lead to with the way he freelances near the sideline, but clearly trying to set a tone early in the season. Still, outside of Patrick Mahomes, one explosive run from the non-Mahomes runners on the Chiefs offense. And it is possible to live this way. I want to make that very clear. If you're a Chiefs fan, like, we saw Kansas City do this en route to a 15-win season last year, but it's such a slim margin for error when this is the style of football you're playing. And I thought it was, I'm not rooting for it to happen, but I thought it was so fitting the way this game swung, where you march all the way down deep into the red zone. Travis Kelce breaks open on an angle route. Looks like you're going to score to go up 17-13 late in the game and maybe have a chance to steal a game where you've been the less impressive team. And instead, the pass clangs off of Travis Kelce's hands. The timing is a little bit off. I mean, he should have made the play, but timing's not as great as you would prefer. And Andrew Makuba's there to completely swing this thing. And when you have that slim margin for error, every misexecution is so amplified. And that's pretty much the story of this game.
And that's kind of thing. I feel like the margin for error thing with them is like, that's fine if you're going to be a high success rate, which one they actually still weren't in this game. They had like I think it was they had a 31.6% rushing success rate in this game, which includes the Patrick Mahomes run. So obviously without those,
God, what would it be without that?
Not great. I was a little bit too quick to look it up, but it would have not been very good without that. But the thing is, like, if you're going to try to live that way, you got to get your explosives or your critical plays somewhere. When Rashee Rice is healthy or not suspended, they can at least get them from there. Or on like the critical down stuff, you can obviously get some of that from Travis Kelce. But in this game, he had, I think, a critical like third down drop towards the left sideline that kind of hurt them at some point. And then, like you mentioned, the touchdown drop, where that one was especially frustrating to me too, because they know they're getting, like, Kelce knows he's getting man coverage. And like, if the Chiefs are getting man coverage in the red zone, like, Patrick Mahomes probably wants to go to Travis Kelce, because they had done like a little yo-yo motion with the back.
Yeah.
The linebacker followed. Kelce should know that like this ball might be coming out hot. And so there was just like, the other thing too, like, the ball's a little bit low and at Kelce's knees, so that it seems like a difficult throw, but like, or a difficult catch. But ball at the goal line, like at the face of the goal line, the quarterback always wants to throw low because that's the best way to protect the ball. Like, it just, that's a play that I feel like 3 years ago was very routine for those two, and the fact that it doesn't come through, like, that's the difference between sometimes with these teams.
From the Makuba interception return, which, let's take this moment to shout out Josh Simmons for being the one to hawk down a safety.
Insane.
Just a super cool play that gets buried in an otherwise straightforward ending and a big win for Philadelphia. But you talk about choking somebody out. The rest of this game felt like a sleeper hold. Like, it felt so inevitable. They're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to do the brotherly shove. They're not going to put the ball in harm's way. And honestly, I felt like the Eagles' entire offensive game plan felt very similar to what they did against Dallas in the season opener, where it's not very fancy. It's not very explosive. Even the run game, other than Saquon Barkley's early touchdown run, is not as explosive as we got used to in the second half of last season. But one thing it is, man, it's pretty efficient, and it's clearly pretty tough to beat, even if it's not the most aesthetically pleasing thing going right now.
And that's the thing, especially if the defense is going to continue to play more like this level than they did in week one. I think week one was a little bit more up and down, but if they can hold teams, you know, like Kansas City, like Patrick Mahomes, to 17 points a week, and then again, you're able to kind of choke out the clock the way that Barkley is able to play in this game. And Jalen Hurts, like, again, for as frustrating as it is that he is playing, especially this year, this style of player where he is holding the ball forever and not really throwing the ball down the field, it's frustrating, but he hasn't really put the ball at risk, which is at least, like, if you're going to play this way as a team, at least that does something for you. Like, I don't think they completed a single ball past 15 yards, except for the one Devonta Smith throw down the sideline, where Devonta kind of just does a really good job of coming back to the ball and making that catch.
You put your incredible players in positions, and more often than not, they'll make you right. I told you I had a stat for you. Are you ready for it?
Oh, I hope so.
Through 2 weeks this season, Jalen Hurts is 32 of 36 on throws from 0 to 9 yards. So from the line of scrimmage to the sticks. He's 2 of 5 throwing shot plays. He had the big one to Dotson in week 1. He had one to Devontae Smith today. He has not attempted a throw between 10 and 19 yards yet this season.
He hasn't attempted one?
It has not happened yet.
No, no.
I mean, this is per next gen stats. I guess theoretically they could have just charted it wrong. Maybe there's a glitch in the software, but next gen says he has not attempted a throw between 10 and 19 yards.
Now that you say it, though, it really has just been shot plays or like quick game, or even on the plays where he has run around. There was one I got mad about today where he held the ball for like 6 seconds. And he came back and I threw the ball to like AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, like 2 yards away from the line of scrimmage. And it's like, I guess they're really just not targeting the middle of the field, which is crazy when you have AJ Brown. Like, that's his thing. That was where he feasted before they traded for him.
I have a hard time believing it's going to continue this way. And I don't even mean like from a dramatic standpoint, like the narrative with AJ Brown and the Philly passing game. I mean, I would guess if it keeps up this way, somebody somewhere is going to have something to say about it, whether it would be AJ Brown or Devontae Smith getting upset, whether it's Nick Sirianni getting involved with Kevin Patullo and the play calling. Like, much like we say with Kansas City lives that way because they have to. Philadelphia has too much talent to live this way every single week. So I would, and plus not everyone is going to be equipped to stop them the way that a Kansas City is, I don't think. So I would expect it to change, but I don't know. I think it's got to be a nice ace up your sleeve to know that you can play this buttoned up and probably beat the vast majority of your teams on your schedule.
Yeah, the fact that we have so many issues through 2 weeks about the Eagles offense and they've still won both games, the Super Bowl champions are fine, I guess.
I think this whole game can be boiled down to the exchange that the field mics picked up at the end of the game, which was incredible.
That's ridiculous.
Eagles are in victory formation, kneeling out the clock. Chris Jones clearly frustrated with the way the Eagles have just been draining the clock for the last 9 minutes of this game. He says something to Jalen Hurts about, you didn't even have 100 passing yards. And Jalen Hurts said, we won the effing game. Shut the hell up. I'm like, doesn't that boil the Eagles down in a nutshell? Like, all the discourse about Jalen Hurts and about this team is like, it makes people very upset how complete they are and the way that they win football games, but they do it a hell of a lot. And they did it once again at Arrowhead Stadium.
He even, like, from the outside, it's frustrating for me to like watch someone with the offense can get away with and they still win the games. Being the guy who is forced to try to stop the offense and they still get away with it, I can imagine why Chris Jones is a little upset.
If you include the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes has now lost 3 games in a row for the first time in his NFL career. Kansas City 0-2 heading into a road Sunday night game against the New York Giants next week.
It should be a get right.
Still too early for me to be overly worried about it, but definitely a weird place for the Kansas City Chiefs to be. That was the centerpiece of Sunday, but so much more fun stuff to get to. Like, this wound up being a very hectic, very fun day away from Kansas City as well. So let's dive into it with You Have My Attention.
Well, gentlemen, you have my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
I think it's so fitting, Derrik. I made a joke about this with my good buddy, John Schmelk, who's covered the New York Giants for a long time. Giants-Cowboys used to be a headline grabber. Like, it used to be Sunday Night Football guaranteed every single year, ratings galore, markets galore. We didn't mention it one time in the preview show. It just felt like such an afterthought on the Sunday card. And for good reason, might I say. So, of course, though, they play the most entertaining, most chaotic, high-scoring game of week 2. Probably not the best game of the season because Ravens-Bills just happened, but as far as unexpectedly chaotic results go, the Cowboys take down the Giants 40-37 in overtime. You have my attention, everybody. Cowboys, Giants, both teams. The game literally had everybody's attention because it ran into all of the late afternoon kickoff times. Like, Cowboys were playing for a solid 10 minutes while the Eagles and Chiefs were doing their thing in the first quarter. So for a variety of reasons, these two teams had our full attention on day afternoon.
This game for like 800 different reasons. Like, to me, the Russ hit on every deep ball until he didn't, which was the crazy thing. Like, there was a point where,
and also just the most hilariously bad miscommunication on the interception that wound up deciding this game. Like,
yes. Oh, so that was like, that's why to me it's like, it was almost like karmic justice in a way, where like Russ was he was betting red and hitting red on every deep ball. And it was, I think at one point, Mina Kimes had tweeted that Russ was like 7 of 9 for 260 yards and 3 touchdowns on attempts beyond 20 yards, like just chucking it. Like Malik Neighbors caught a huge one. Wan'Dale Robinson caught a huge one down the seam. That was actually like, Russ doesn't throw a whole lot of like pure, beautiful seam balls anymore at this stage. And that was honestly one of the prettiest throws I think we saw all day. So he was just ripping it down the field. And then so for him to have that game, and then at the very end, just kind of chuck one up that just something goes wrong and they throw the interception, it throws the game awry a little bit. Just a funny way for that game to unfold for that offense.
Russ finished 7 of 11 for 264, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception on throws that traveled over 20 air yards.
Obscene.
And the final one is just an ugly. It looked like he thought Malik Neighbors was going to cut it back inside on a post, and Malik Neighbors took it up the sideline. And Donovan Wilson, also ironic that a Cowboys safety made a game-swinging play that gave the Cowboys the chance to win, because the Dallas secondary, I mean, good God, man. I mean, I know they lose Deron Bland to a foot injury during practice heading into this. And like, Deron Bland is a good player, don't get me wrong, but for it to go from surprisingly good in the season opener at Philadelphia to this catastrophe, it makes me think Deron Bland needs to hustle back ASAP, because if you go back and watch this, I mean, everything that could conceivably have gone wrong in the Dallas secondary happened. Like, you had guys just getting torched deep. Trayvon Diggs looked like a guy coming off of a major injury. Philly, for whatever reason, wasn't really able to take advantage of that, but Malik Neighbors was able to get steps on him on a regular basis. Kaiir Elam looked more like the guy where you're like, oh, I get why Buffalo might want to trade him. Like, he looked more like that guy in week 2. Reddy Stewart stepped in at nickelback for the Cowboys in this game. And when they weren't just outright getting beat, it looked like they had no idea where they were supposed to be. This was another game where Dallas played basically 98% zone coverage, but we're not on the same page at all about what those zones were supposed to be.
Well, and like, that's the other thing is, like, even when the corners, whether it was like cover 3 quarters, something like that, when the corners were in what ends up becoming more of like one-on-one coverage, even in those zones, did not keep up well with their men. And then the Cowboys have played a lot of cover 2 early in the season. That's something that Eberflus has always liked to do. That's why it was kind of surprising that Russ beat them, because Russ is typically like, when he throws down the field, he wants to beat you outside the numbers. And cover 2 is kind of daring you to do it and daring you to make those hole shots. And so one way to beat it is like, all right, we'll just throw in between them, in between the 2 safeties, like flying off the hashes. And the fact that Russ actually did that in this game, and like, again, the Neighbors touchdown, the Wan'Dale Robinson throw that I think like he got tackled on the 1, but is effectively a touchdown. Those 2 were both straight down the middle. And like, the fact that he was able to make a lot of those throws, it's like, that's really not something you ever want to bet on for a quarterback like Russ, because it's just not something I think at this stage in his career. And so when he does it, it's kind of just like, in a way, you almost throw your hands up. It's like, I don't know. I just didn't expect him to do that.
I just think Matt Eberflus's defense is the type of system that can be extremely good when you have good players that know what they're doing. And maybe it can be as simple as a quality player like Deron Bland not being there, but like, the minute that starts to fall off, it can go really, really poorly. Eberflus only blitzed Russ 7 times on 45 dropbacks. There was no...
You should be sending it at him all the time.
There was no pressure from the Dallas pass rush. He was pressured 33% of the time. It's a bottom 10 rate among starters who played their entire game on Sunday. We're not getting meaningful pressure. We're not covering well. And this is the result. Fortunately, the Dallas Cowboys have Dak Prescott, who has now won 14 straight games against the New York Giants. It is the second longest win streak against one team in league history.
Which I did not realize he was on such a streak until I saw it today. Which, like, I guess in my head, it's like, yeah, I can't really imagine many times where he struggled that badly against the Giants. And even I think last year when he like had not that great of a season for him, one of his best games was earlier in the season against the Giants. But it's just like 14 games against anyone is insane.
And I thought it was a really shaky day from Dak and the Dallas offense in the early going. Like, they were struggling to stay on the field in the beginning. They were definitely coping with the Giants pass rush, which was active in this game. 12 yards at or 12 attempts at or behind the line of scrimmage, trying to offset that pass rush. Threw an ugly pick earlier in the day, but then like by the fourth quarter and overtime, like this was the type of game where you point to and you're like, yeah, this is why people like Dak Prescott.
That's the thing, is like, this is for all of some of his blemishes. Like I do think that Dak Prescott in like pure pass scenarios is one of the 8-9 guys that I'm like comfortable with being in that scenario, because he's very willing to hang to the pocket. He's very willing to make tight windows throws. And sometimes that leads to the interceptions. Like the interception he throws, he's getting a little bit of heat straight down the middle. I think there's a free rusher and he's like, okay, I'm comfortable getting the ball out and taking the hit. And he wants to hit CeeDee Lamb, I think, coming over the middle. But Andrew Phillips just did, who, by the way, Andrew Phillips
phenomenal game today.
He might have been the best player on the field today. He was incredible. But he just undercuts that route. And that's one of those ones that, like, if you're trying to throw on the break and anticipate it, and quarterbacks like Dak love to do that, if the DB just kind of runs the route for the receiver, like, what are you going to do? Like, that's just an incredible play by that guy.
I think CeeDee Lamb said something during the week about how Drew Phillips put a dirty hit on him in last year's game. And he was like, I got something for him. It sure seemed like Drew Phillips was like, I got something for you, dude. Because like he was active. He had the interception. He like body slammed CD in this game, which like drew a flag. So maybe not all good, but I really appreciated like the moxie.
Well, and even in like overtime, he was almost what kind of saved them in this game. Obviously, the Giants still ended up losing, but he had played really, really tight coverage on Jalen Tolbert at one point where like Dak fits the window, but because Phillips is so just glued to Tolbert, it like doesn't allow Tolbert to comfortably catch the ball. He ends up dropping it. That was in overtime. That was a huge play. And then a little bit later on third down, he makes a great tackle in the flats. That is just like Andrew Phillips
was at the time a game-saving tackle.
Exactly. Yes. And it's like, again, rest of his team blew it, but like Andrew Phillips, if nobody else did their job today necessarily for the Giants, Andrew Phillips absolutely did.
41 combined points in the fourth quarter, 17 points scored in the final 52 seconds of regulation. 5 combined possessions in the overtime period, which is insane. Like sometimes you see an overtime game with as few as one. Like you could use up the entire allotment of time and have like 2 possessions. They get 5. And then the Dak throw to George Pickens that kind of put them in field goal range, which Brandon Aubrey's field goal range is like the logo basically. But an amazing throw that kind of sums up Dak Prescott, just a free rusher about to murder him and just throws a strike to Pickens on what was like a deep crosser. Just so much to love about this game, even though it was a very sloppy game of football.
And that, again, last thing I'll say to praise Dak for the 800th time on the show, it's the fact that he had thrown the pick earlier in the game where he's trying to anticipate a route and getting smoked by a free rusher. The fact that later in the game, in overtime, game on the line, even though it's like a different route and stuff, all stuff like that, he's extremely willing to be like, I'll do it again. And he just trusts and believes that he can make the play and that Pickens can make the play. And that's just, you kind of have to have a quarterback like that.
Brandon Aubrey's had my attention forever, but 4 of 4 on the day, 51, 44, 64 to send the game and 46 to win the game. Not bad. Not bad.
Pretty
Brandon
good
Aubrey.
at his job.
You can settle for a 64-yard field goal and have it look like a good strategy. Maybe you should extend your kicker. Let's keep it pushing to another unit that has our full attention, and the hand-wringing maybe was understandable because of how dominant the Green Bay Packers looked against the Detroit Lions last week. But here in week 2, Detroit Lions, specifically your offense, has my attention. They roared back to life. They looked like the unit we remembered with Ben Johnson, except Ben Johnson was the guy receiving a 52-21 thumping as Detroit raced past Chicago.
It was bad. And this is one of those that, like, yeah, the Lions should get like a little bit of a mulligan for week 1, especially now that we know what we've seen of the Packers defense doing again, what they did to Washington. So maybe all of this just says a lot more about how good the Packers defense is, but it was really, really encouraging to see the Lions offense do what they're supposed to do. I thought like a number of like other players, just guys that had, I think, struggled in week 1 looked a lot better. Like I thought Tate Ratledge played way better in this game. Week 1, I think he was struggling, but in this game, I thought he did a really good job of moving people. And then I think in this game, what you saw, especially early on, the Bears were trying to play a lot of like one-on-one coverage. I don't think you want to do that ever against the Lions, because the whole thing is they're just like, we're just going to run a lot of these crossers and we're just going to get Amon-Ra St. Brown streaking across the middle. We're going to get Jameson Williams streaking across the middle. We're going to get just all these guys who are too explosive and too fast if you just give them some of these one-on-ones. So when the Bears were trying to give them some of those one-on-ones, really bad stuff. When they were trying to play zone, really bad stuff. I think my favorite play that like still led me believe the Lions do have some of the juice from last year, that like this wasn't all Ben Johnson. In the third quarter, I think it was very early in the third quarter, they have two receivers to the left side. They motion one in, and they like at the snap, like kind of switch spots basically. And they run, the inside receiver runs like a little dig kind of stop route, and they get Jameson Williams flying over the top of him on the post. Safety sits down for the underneath route. Jameson Williams just flies by everybody. And like that's exactly the type of throw and exactly the type of play you expect from the Lions. And for them to not be able to have hit really any of that last week and then do that again in this game is just like, it's a very encouraging sign for them.
I love the way that they just kind of flipped a switch, because the early going of this game, I mean, they scored a couple touchdowns early. It's not like they looked hopeless, but it looked very normal. You know, like they'd score a touchdown and then they'd punt. They had a drive that covered less than like 5 yards and they punted. They had a 4-play, no yard gained, missed field goal drive, just like standard hiccups and misfires that you might expect early in a season. And then it just kind of clicked into gear and was devastating the rest of the day. 6 straight possessions with points before it was victory formation time. 67-yard touchdown drive, 76-yard touchdown drive, 84-yard touchdown drive, and like all of a sudden you have 50 points, which I don't think was happenstance, by the way. I didn't realize this at the time because this game got so out of whack so quickly. Like I said, like 1 minute it was pretty competitive, and the next minute I was like, holy shit, it's 38-14. I'm going to go watch something else. I can check in on this later. And when I did, I realized that Amon-Ra St. Brown's final of his 3 touchdowns came on 4th down, halfway through the 4th quarter of a game that had been over for a minute. And I know the Lions go for it on 4th down. I know that's what they do, but don't try to tell me that Dan Campbell didn't want to get to 50 with Ben Johnson standing on the other sideline. I would never believe that. Oh,
especially now that he's got to play him twice a year. Yeah, if it was like a one-off game, whatever. But yeah, he's probably trying to get in his head a little bit, especially after, again, when the whole deal is like, people thought that this was all Ben Johnson. And I do think Ben Johnson is really good at his job. And I actually think the Bears offense at certain points in this game looked pretty okay. It's hard to keep up with 52 points once you get thrown out of your game script a little bit.
I thought Jared Goff, I mean, obviously he was awesome today. 23 of 28, 238, 5 touchdowns. He's also, he's now scored 50 points. He's been the quarterback for a 50-point offense 5 times, which puts him only behind Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Lynn Dawson for guys who have done it the most in their NFL career. Clearly he was great. He leads the league heading into Monday Night Football in EPH per dropback. But I thought he was really fun as just a creative player today. Like, I don't think he gets credit for doing that. Like, the cliche about Jared Goff is like pressure him and he'll fall down. He was making plays off of schedule today, like getting outside the pocket, avoiding pressure. He had a fun little throw to Sam Laporta where he like dodged around Montez Sweat coming off left tackle and zipped it across his body. I was like, Jared, that's not you. What are you doing, man? It was so fun. And then one of the long one to JMO, I think it was the touchdown. He had Montez Sweat like draped on his back when he threw that ball. Like, I was impressed by so many things with Jared Goff other than just the stat line.
I think he's so I think what's funny about Jared Goff, like creating and getting outside of the pocket, I think it started to pop up last year and it did again in this game a little bit. He is actually pretty willing to get outside of the pocket and try to make some plays. It's just that sometimes he does not have the facilities to do so. And I think against really good defenses, he'll just get hunted down before he gets outside of the pocket or certain stuff like that. But if he can find some space outside of the pocket, he actually does do, kind of to your point, like he'll sidearm whip it if he has to. Like the one that he did get to Laporta was like, okay, if you can do that once or twice a game, that's really all. When you're as good as you are in structure, really all you need is to have those 1 or 2 plays. And so I would say he had 3 or 4 of them today with as good as the Lions offense played. And that's how they could score 50. But it was an insanely good day for them. I also want to say there were a couple things about the Bears defense that really, really irritated me. I think right now, like Kevin Byard just looks very slow. And I think in a game against an offense as fast as the Lions, I think that really showed up. And then one other like very small thing that I had was in the first quarter, the Bears tried to call a corner blitz from the boundary with Jalen Johnson. If you're calling a corner blitz, you got to go. You need to fly. And Jalen Johnson like kind of saunters up to the running back and is like, am I going to hit him? And I understand that he's not been fully healthy, but that's just like, well, then don't call a corner blitz for Jalen Johnson in that scenario. It was just like what's going on here type of thing.
We're not making excuses, but the Bears defense is beat to hell and back right now.
Yes.
And so, even, a Kevin Byard who could maybe get by with more around him, I think it's that much worse when you don't have the guys who can sort of pick up that slack. The Lions 0.41 EPA per play for week 2, which is almost double the next best team as we wrap up Sunday night. 55% success rate as an offense, which again, best in the NFL. So just like last week was bad. It was only week 1. This week was really, really good. I don't know. Maybe we'll stabilize somewhere in the middle, but I'm a lot less worried about the Detroit offense than I was a week ago at this time.
Stabilizing in the middle at like 30 points a game would probably be pretty good for them.
Let's keep it going with a unit, a team that has our attention. We teed this up perfectly, Derrik, in the preview show. We said, who's got a better chance to prove that week 1 wasn't a fluke than the Indianapolis Colts? They beat the hell out of a Miami team that really didn't look like they wanted any part of it in week 1. And week 2, it's the Denver Broncos. And we said, let's see you do it against a real unit, Indianapolis Colts. Let's see you do it against a real pass rush that's going to get after you, Daniel Jones. Well, they did.
They did.
The Indianapolis Colts put up 473 yards of offense. They beat the Denver Broncos 29-28. I want to get into the end game madness a little bit because if it wasn't the most memorable ending of the week, it was either that or Dallas, New York. It was insane. But before we do that, let's make sure we give the Colts some flowers, and in particular Daniel Jones, who outright thrived. Like I was so impressed with everything about particularly this offense, but obviously the team as a whole moves to 2-0 on the year.
Yeah, there are a couple parts of the Daniel Jones thing that have been fascinating to me. I think the one part of this that we could have that is like not all that surprising now that we're seeing it is that underneath Daniel Jones's accuracy to me has been pretty good. Like whether that's like on some of their RPO stuff, their quick game, or even on just when he's, checking the ball down, maybe scrambles outside of the pocket, needs to dump the ball off. He's been very, very accurate underneath with that. Has given the offense a little bit of a floor to work with. He's also been pretty effective as a scrambler through 2 weeks. So that part of it is not surprising to me. What has been surprising to me about Daniel Jones is that under pressure, he's been like really good.
Yeah, dude.
In this game, he was awesome. Like it was just like he is completely unafraid to slide around, to take hits, and to make a lot of plays. Like there was one where I think it was the second play of the game where they run like a little play action. They've got a guy streaking from right to left, kind of on an over route. And Daniel Jones just slides a little bit to his left. The center gets bowled over. And Jones just buys a little bit of time to his left, still gets smacked as he's throwing it, but puts the ball right on his guy, like 25 yards down the field. And that was like, okay, if he can do some of that and like remain within himself while he's getting pressured, make a couple of plays outside of the pocket. So there was that element that I just didn't know if we were going to get that version of Daniel Jones. He's also throwing it down the field more than he has in like 2 years, really. Like this was early Daniel Jones. We remember, like, you remember the Bucs game he played when he was, I think it might have been his first start, where him and Jameis were just like chucking it back and forth like 30
several
yards down the field
ago. But yeah,
it was a while ago. But that was something he did early on in his career, and I think that was something that's been missing the past couple of years. And he just looked more willing and able to do that in a way that I just wasn't sure that we were going to get from him.
Denver pressured Daniel Jones on 45% of his dropbacks, which if you take out guys who didn't play the whole game, so like not counting Tyrod Taylor, who like entered for Justin Fields, like among guys who played all of the snaps or the vast majority of the snaps, third highest pressure rate in the NFL for week 2. And particularly on passing downs, like in gotta have it situations, Denver kind of got whatever they wanted. Like Indy's offensive line is really good, right? And like he had this fantastic situation in week 1 where the Dolphins just really couldn't get to him. That wasn't the case on Sunday, and it didn't matter. Like they converted 6 of 13 third downs. Like, so you're up near 50% converting and moving the ball down the field. I thought it was incredibly impressive. And it's not like Indianapolis dominated Denver up front. He just managed the situation in a very impressive way, I thought.
He did. And like there's still some part of me that is like, we'll probably still get some bad games from him trying to do stuff like this. Because
we can't say that after this, though.
I know, but like I think the last couple of years I would have been like, he might have 1 in 10 good games under pressure. Now it's like, if he can do this, it's like I have a little bit more faith that it's at least closer to like he's not going to have so many bad games. He did put the ball at risk a couple of times in this game.
I'm not ready to wholesale like change my opinion of who the Colts are, and teams can start fast and fade, and Daniel Jones probably will play a stinker or 2 or 3 if I had to guess, but we think highly of Miami's front, and they played a much better game in week 2, by the way. We can get to them later on in the show. This is a really good resume for the first 2 weeks, particularly this game, scoring 29 points against a unit that we all think very highly of, among the top handful in the NFL. He deserves for me to not like couch what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, he deserves for me to just be like, guys playing well, don't have to qualify it any other way.
That's fair. I think I'm a little bit more like, you've got 3 or 4 years of bad tape on you. I'd like to see it again, but he is starting off really well.
Probably the responsible way to look at it. But
the other thing I want to say, the offensive line and run game in the second half in particular, they started off kind of slow in the run game and stuff like that. But in the second half, they were kicking ass. Like Braden Smith in particular, I thought played a really, really good game in this game. Like the right side as a whole, I thought was really good. And some of the double teams, him and the right guard were getting on were like really good. Jonathan Taylor was awesome.
Real 2021 vibes coming off of Jonathan Taylor right now.
Yeah, was, if he can keep doing this, like, because that was the whole thing, right? Just like last year was like, well, part of the formula was that you have this running quarterback and this really good running back. Like, you should be able to create something there. And it just never clicked for a number of reasons. And obviously Richardson missed a lot of the year anyway. Daniel Jones is a good and athletic quarterback. And so they can mix some of the run element with him and like do all this other stuff. And like, it's looking good so far. And I'm pretty optimistic.
I think I just like the way the Colts complement each other. Like JT is a great back. He's been active in the receiving game this year. He had a receiving touchdown in this game.
Pro too.
Yeah,
like really good.
Daniel Jones is obviously a mobile guy, and then like all the pieces of their passing game just sort of play a very specific role. And when it meshes together, it looks nice. Like, and don't get me wrong, these are good players, but like the sum of the Colts parts adds up to something cooler than what it looks like on paper, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of like B+ to B- skill players, but they have like so many of them now. And Jonathan Taylor, I think, kind of transcends that. But like they generally have just no true superstar at the pass catcher position. We'll see about Tyler Warren. He's been pretty good. The last thing I do want to say about the pass catchers, we probably underrated a little bit that Michael Pittman was just not healthy for like all of last year. And like, I know I did. He's been a player that I've been always kind of up and down on, and like what is his like true value, because I think he's not a very explosive player. But if other elements of the offense are going to be explosive, if Jonathan Taylor is going to be explosive, if Pierce is going to be as good as he is down the field, then like what Pittman offers you as just running a ton of slants and shallows and converting on all of them, that I think really does go a long way, and it certainly has through 2 weeks.
So we're very impressed with the Colts. Honestly, the Broncos, for the most part, like played a good game themselves. This was just again, other than Dallas, New York, which was just bonkers chaotic, this was actually like, this was the best well-played game of the weekend. Just like the most entertaining, well-played game up until everybody lost their damn minds in the final 2 minutes of this game. And we can be impressed with the Colts and what they've got going on, 2-0 start, and also say the end of game situation here was just abysmal. The way that Shane Steichen got to field goal range basically with 1:44 to play and none of his timeouts used. And from the Denver 40-yard line, just decided, I've had enough. I don't think I want Daniel Jones to get strip sacked here. He's done such a good job getting us to this point. I don't want to risk it. And with 1:44 and all of his timeouts, proceeded to run one play and get the clock down to 15 seconds and settle for a 60-yard field goal. And the only thing stupider than that is that when Indianapolis trotted out their kicker, who had attempted 9 NFL kicks in his life from 60 yards, The Denver Broncos drew a leveraging flag because they contacted the center on a hopeless field goal. I mean, it had no shot, and
he was like 5 yards short and 5 yards wide. Like,
and
it
I
was
could
not
have
even
told you before he even did it that it would probably go that way. And yet the Broncos draw a flag that moves the Colts 15 yards closer. He bangs it in from 45. Everybody's happy. And you can just sort of push it into the corner that you bungled the end of game scenario here. This was just brutal for all sides, honestly.
Yeah, it's a weird game to talk about, like, do they deserve to win? Where it's like, for the 58 minutes that they played, yes, they deserve to win the game. And then the way they handled the very end game, like, I don't understand your offense playing as well as it did and then being a little bit scared of them at the very end, especially when you have your timeouts. You can manage this stuff. I did not understand that, especially with the kicker situation that they had. Denver should really not be even trying to block this kick. Obviously, it's being a 60-yarder, but also
I would tell them not to even fire off the line.
Yeah,
just,
if you guys want to jump straight
operation.
up, do whatever you want, but you don't need to go forward and contact the offensive line. I will say 15 yards for that penalty seems a little crazy to me. We gotta talk to Roger about that one.
Player safety penalties always carry a heavier toll. Which, to answer your question, the Colts do deserve to win because the Broncos made an equally egregious mistake. Mm-hmm. And so they just sort of cancel each other out, and we say, all right, good job, Indianapolis. Now, it is telling that so much other crazy stuff happened in week 2 that we left this out of our next segment, because the end of this game definitely had a place in our next segment. But let's get into what did make it into what we call What the Fuck.
What the fuck? What the fuck? What?
Like I said, we had no shortage of options to choose from, but I think we got to start. And unfortunately, it's very heavy, serious injury news that headlines the Cincinnati Bengals week 2 win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Bengals rally past Jacksonville. They win by a score of 31-27 with Jake Browning pulling off the heroics. We'll get into all of that, but obviously the big macro story here is that Joe Burrow goes down with a leg injury with nine minutes to play until halftime, does not return to the game. He's seen limping. He's seen in a walking boot afterwards. I think as of Sunday night, the NFL insiders, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, ESPN's Adam Schefter, they're reporting that it's a grade 3 turf toe injury and that it could sideline him for up to 3 months. I'm not ready to base anything off of that timeline, because when you're talking about a Joe Burrow caliber player, I'm sure the Bengals will exhaust every option. But clearly, Cincinnati is facing a Joe Burrow absence for at least the time being. And kudos to them for finding a way to win without him.
Yeah, this to me is like a WTF in the sense of the joke is the Bengals always suck in September, and they always start 0-2 or 1-2 or 1-3 by the end of their first handful of games. And it's always just they have to dig themselves out of this hole with Joe Burrow.
Is this like a monkey paw situation?
I think so.
Where the Bengals are like, oh, can we just be 2-0? Can we just have a good September? And the football gods are like, you can, but it'll cost you Joe Burrow.
Yeah, you can start 2-0, but it'll cost you the 4th best quarterback in the league for a couple of months potentially. But it is funny, they are, to be a little bit serious, it obviously sucks that Joe Burrow is not going to play. They are at least fortunate in the sense that they've done this with Jake Browning before. They obviously did it today and played a pretty good second half of this game. And I think Browning, they understand how to put this offense together with him. And I think so long as Chase and Higgins can stay healthy, knock on wood, I do think that they'll have a shot to be a competent offense for the rest of this stretch. It's just that they play a pretty gnarly stretch of teams over this handful of months. And these are teams that are going to force shootouts. And it's can a backup quarterback really help you in a shootout? We're going to see about that.
I love when a team understands itself, when you know the score. And Jake Browning did exactly what he needed to. He did throw 3 picks in this game, kind of the ultimate backup quarterback game. But he got the ball to Jamar freaking Chase and T. Higgins to a lesser degree, but just lean on those guys. And there will be defenses that are good enough to shut that down or at least limit it. The Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday were not that team. And the way Jake Browning and Zach Taylor, for that matter, the way the Bengals as a whole were we are not going to stop a drop off at quarterback play from getting the ball to our playmakers. Jamar Chase, 16 targets, 14 catches, 165, 88 yards of yak, by the way. That's the other thing too. Like when you have the most physically imposing duo of receivers in the NFL, go let them bully people. Jamar Chase, 88 yards of yak. T. Higgins, his biggest impact play is a 42-yard touchdown catch in which half of that is yak because he just sunned the safety and the cornerback at the same time. Like that's why those guys draw those paychecks. That's why we talk about them having the contracts that they do, is because they can make a backup quarterback look that good when you get them the ball.
Yeah, dude, the T. Higgins play was, which actually, what's even crazier about this game is, so T. Higgins has that play, obviously, where down the right sideline, just kind of cooks Tyson Campbell. I think he ends up taking like a go ball, like a little bit of an inside stem, fades it back out, and then he catches it. And then Wingard, the safety, tries to come over and help them tackle him, and Tyson Campbell just kind of hit each other. T. Higgins off to the races, and that's that. You mentioned Jamar Chase, some of his yak. There was, I think, the drive right before the half. Browning ends up throwing an interception at the end of it, but they throw this little screen to the left side for Jamar Chase, and they clear the way for Jamar Chase. And just if you give him a little space, a little bit of a runway, he's going to turn what could be, 12-yard gain into 25. Like he's the best in the league at that. And then the other guy, the catch that Mitchell Tinsley made on the right side of the end zone, like if even he's not even their third guy. Like they have like Andre Yoshivas. Like if he's, I don't
even know if he would be in the top 5 targets in the Bengals offense.
Yeah, because if you want to include like Chase Brown and like Gesicki when he's healthy, like even though Fant had a pretty good play today, like Tinsley could be their 6th or 7th guy at any given point. And for him to have a play like that in the red zone is just like, they clearly have a lot of guys who are just good at, if you throw the ball up to them, go catch it. So even though Browning did throw 3 picks, like this is how you should be playing to a degree in this offense.
I love how the end of this game was a perfect process versus results situation, because the dramatic ending, Jake Browning drives the Bengals 93 yards. They go ahead on a, love the throwback Drew Brees, Tom Brady quarterback sneak, by the way. Like in the era of the brotherly shove, yeah, let's dive over the line and just break the plane. But the thing that set that drive up, and I can hear Jags fans yelling, big DPI on 4th down on Andre Yoshivas that enabled that whole thing to take place as well. But the thing that gave the Bengals the ball was a decision that I loved from Liam Cohen, where you're up 3 on the Cincinnati 7-yard line, 4 something to play, I think, like 4-minute situation. Liam Cohen's like, let's just go get the first down and we'll probably win this game. And obviously they don't, which enables everything to come. But I love the idea of, yeah, if we get 5 yards, we win this game. And like, we're not worried about Jake Browning driving 92 yards on us. Obviously, that is exactly what happened.
That's still a bet you make.
That is a bet you make. And Liam Cohen said afterward, he's like, that was a go in all of our models. All of our data says that's a full go. And it should have worked, by the way. Really, really rough day for Brian Thomas Jr., highlighted by him not making a pretty routine catch over the middle that probably ices this game for the Jags.
Brian Thomas had a tough one. And head coach Liam Cohen, I think, had some issues not like really saying everything that he probably wanted to say.
Like he had a lot
game
on his mind that he decided not to say into a microphone after this game.
I think that film session is probably going to be tough, but like even on the 4th and 5 that they are not able to convert that you're talking about there, like Brian Thomas, I think, so he's running like a little bit of a shallow route and he clearly wants to sit around the hash mark and catch the ball, turn around, get to the 1st-yard marker, but I don't know what it is. Like if he didn't love the ball location, even though it was fine, like he just clearly was not comfortable catching the ball, turning and like maybe getting hit. So he ends up dropping that. They don't convert there. There was the throw that you're mentioning where over the middle, he just doesn't want to take the shot to the ribs, which like, I get it. That's not fun, but like
once you catch it, you're going to turn around and get hit.
You're going to get smacked.
You're going to convert the 4th down as well.
And that's part of the job. Pay you to do that. Yeah. Like you got to go do it. And then there was even a go ball down the right sideline that like was probably not super catchable, but I think you saw him a little bit give up early on the play, which I didn't love. So like, I do not know if this is going to be a regular issue for him. Like, I think this is something that good coaching staff sort out, like good players sort out. And I think what we saw from Brian Thomas last year was obviously phenomenal. So if this is still something that they're still having weird issues with by like middle of November, like, okay, I'll be concerned. I'll at least give them a little bit of grace for now.
I don't want to put too much of a timeline on Joe. There's just, as we're recording this, we just don't know. But it seems like a safe bet. It'll be a multi-week absence of some sort. Bengals went 4-3 with Browning as their starter in 2023. They narrowly missed the playoffs despite not having Burrow for basically the second half of that season. Next 4 games: at Vikings, at Broncos, Lions, at Packers. So regardless of what happens there, and without knowing when Joe might be back, 2-0 is so big. Like, theoretically, you could weather this storm if you can steal 1 or 2 here and sort of tread water, because you're not trying to claw out of a hole for the first time.
You have a cushion.
The
How
first
great is
time
that?
in Joe Burrow's time as a Cincinnati Bengal, he has a little bit of cushion to work with as he tries to recover from this injury.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they have if they can steal one of those games, they'll end up at 500. Like, again, assuming Joe Burrow does not need any type of surgery. If they can steal that, that would be huge for them. So we'll see.
The monkey's paw. That's
It's got to be.
Gotta be. Another WTF situation. And look, there's a lot that went into Pittsburgh's loss to Seattle in the early window on Sunday. And I don't like to single out one backbreaking play, because you make the wrong read and throw a pick six. Like, do we know for sure what the progression was, what the coverage was? Like, there's so many elements that can go into backbreaking plays. Not here. Not when Caleb Johnson flubs a kickoff that leads directly to a Seattle touchdown, and he's basically the only person involved in this. So early fourth quarter, Seattle kicks a field goal to go up 17-14. Pittsburgh's going to get the ball, going to have a chance to drive down and tie, maybe take the lead. We'll see what happens. Caleb Johnson, who is the regular kickoff guy, like, he's been in this role for both games. He's had 8 kickoffs on the year. I know he's a rookie, but this is a job they laid out for him coming out of training camp. The ball bounces past him, and he just lets it go into the end zone. It's so tragic watching him jog off to the Steelers sideline. Just like, well, not going to have a return on this one. And as he's jogging to the sideline, the whole Seattle kick team is meeting in the end zone to recover it for, like, it's the game-winning touchdown. Like, see, it never felt like Seattle was in trouble after that. And like I said, it's this one easy thing. Hey, man, the new kickoff rules stipulate the ball goes into the end zone. It's got to be downed. It's a live football, or else this could happen, which shouldn't, but did. And to that, I say, WTF, Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, that was just gnarly. And, like, on one hand, it's like, okay, you've had the job, for not very long. You're a rookie, all that stuff. I get it. But this is his main responsibility at this stage, because they're not even really using him on offense. Like, he is currently right now a special teams player for them. Like, he had 1 carry in this game.
And I think he has 2 carries on the year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's him. Jalen Warren has taken the lion's share of the load. And then even Kenneth Gainwell has been really their, like, other back in this offense. And I know part of that is probably just like Aaron Rodgers doesn't like having rookies in the offense. And so maybe this isn't necessarily indicative of Caleb Johnson, but it is like they clearly have trusted him to be their kickoff guy right now and not use him on offense. Should at least know some of the basic rules. And I know, like, again, college doesn't really work this way, and it's a whole new thing, and you never watch football like this, but it's just, this is a mistake that you cannot make in a game like this.
The other thing that blew me away is, and it's hard to tell from the TV angles, but, like, the way the ball skipped up, it came close to his hands. Mm-hmm. Close enough that I'm not sure it didn't touch him.
At first I thought it did. And then I think, they like tried to reshow, and they were like, we don't know. But it was like,
maybe just go and make sure, man. Yeah. Just maybe go and make sure that you're not about to commit the blunder of the week, which is what happens.
Like, if you leave your house, it's like, you're not sure you locked it. You need to go back and check just in case, there's no reason not to.
There's a lot. Like I said, there's more elements to this game. Steelers offense, and ironic that as much as we loved the Steelers-Jets game in week 1, neither offense really followed through on that momentum. Very forgettable week for the Steelers. And like I said, there's so many variables that go into a loss, but this is just the most obvious and the most avoidable one, in my opinion.
Yeah, it probably was. Like, the offense just did not. I think part of it is, like, this is still, to me, an offense that, even if the run game is not humming, they want to be in an offensive structure that is allowing them to get under center, to get into tighter formations, and, like, at least have that be part of the element. Like, a lot of the Calvin Austin plays from last week against the Jets, they were getting him into tight splits, like under center, and using him on these corner routes and stuff like that, and getting him free releases that way. I think the later this game went on, especially once you got into the second half, especially after this, when they go down multiple scores, it's like they were forced a little bit more into a pure pass scenario, which I just don't think is how this offense really wants to operate the way it's constructed right now.
I think this might have been the game that had the least amount of eyeballs on it, probably because neither team looked particularly impressive in week 1, and it was in an early window with 8 other games. The New England Patriots improved to 1-1 on the year. They beat the Miami Dolphins 33-27. And basically the whole second half of the fourth quarter just made me say, WTF? Like, what? Let me just say it. What the fuck? Because this was a wild sequence of events, starting with back-to-back special teams touchdowns.
What's funny to me is it starts right before that, where it's middle of the fourth quarter, 9 minutes left. Is a 2nd and 13 for the New England Patriots, and they're like backed up on their own 22 or something like that. Garrett Bradbury, the center, snaps the ball like at Drake May's feet. He gets sacked on like his own 9-yard line. And so that in your mind is like, okay, they're about to give up really bad field position to the Dolphins. And then they punt it. And that's when Washington takes it back all the way into the end zone. He takes back the punt return. And then literally on the ensuing kickoff, I think it was Antonio Gibson takes that back for a touchdown. And so that's where you get that whole sequence of stuff. And then even everything after that started to get a little bit weird to me. Like a little bit later in the fourth quarter, the Patriots are driving. They're about to what feels like put the game away. They get to a 4th and 2 with about 2 minutes left on Miami's 30. This is clear go. Like, if we get this, we can win the game.
Yes.
Morgan Moses false start. Man. And so they have to kick that allows Miami to stay into the game. And then Miami goes and tries out and to do their thing. Miami gets the ball. Devon Achane almost has like what looks like a touchdown. He steps out at like the 30 or something like that, or a little bit shorter than that. So we got to run this all back. Okay, Miami's got to try this again. They end up in a 3rd and 12. Tua scrambles out of bounds for no gain on a 3rd and 12, which to me is inexcusable. Like, we got to try something with the game on the line. And then on the ensuing play, I think he gets just completely smoked around the edge.
He does.
Yeah. It's just like,
man. You left out my favorite part, though, which is that after
there was so much. I just
after the Devon Achane mess up, the Dolphins incur a false start while they're like trying to recover from that miscue, a false start. And then they take a delay of game while they're trying to sort that out, to the point that the home fans are booing for their execution in this whole thing. And then Tua runs out of bounds, and then he gets sacked. And the crazy thing is, this was a marked improvement on what we saw week 1. And remember, you and I, we were watching the games together early on Sunday, and I think New England went up 13-0 pretty quickly in this game. And we were like, holy shit, is Mike McDaniel going to be fired on Friday after they inevitably lose to Buffalo? And they're still 0-2. Like, it's not like they won this game, but from where it was at the end of the first quarter, at least it was a functioning NFL product, albeit a bad one. By the way, 22 total flags in this game.
Oh, that's gnarly.
140 penalty yards, 2 special teams touchdowns. Yeah, I like it was an NFL product, still not a very good one, is what I would say.
Still not a good one. Even to add to that, 8 sacks between these two teams. Like, it was just a lot of sloppy football. And the last thing I would actually want to say to the point of sacks, obviously, I think it was Milton Williams who ended up.
He got the walk off, the game clinching sack.
So he's the one who ended the game. There was a sack earlier in the fourth quarter with about 3 minutes left on a 3rd down, which was, I think, Miami's second to last drive potentially. Harold Landry has actually been. This was a signing that we kind of talked about a little bit last week of like the Eric Murray, Jordan Lewis signings for Jacksonville and stuff like that. Harold Landry has had a shockingly good start to the season. I think obviously playing the Raiders offensive line and the Miami Dolphins offensive line in their current state, not the 2 biggest tests, but I do think he's looked really, really good for them. So
the interception Tua threw after the Antonio Gibson kickoff return.
Oh, that was
bonkers.
That was just
derogatory, very derogatory.
he's had a couple already this year where he's just, and I think that they like Tua is typically not a super high interception player. And so the fact that he's already, and a lot of these are coming outside of the pocket. And I know, again, these are also coming in games where like they're already down and this one was on a 4th down. So it's like, I get like why you have to do something, but the fact that he's already had so many mistakes like that, I think is pretty troubling.
The Dolphins are 12.5-point underdogs Thursday in Buffalo.
I mean, this offensive line and this team on a short week, I get it.
You never want to overreact to spreads ahead of time. Crazy things happen in the NFL, but I don't have a good feeling about what the Dolphins are walking into on Thursday night. Like I said, it was plenty of WTF to get to. Let's throw it to what is quickly becoming my favorite segment on these recap shows. We're calling it, How Could You Not Be Romantic About Football?
I mean, this thing was a thing of beauty.
So the point of this segment isn't always to highlight a game, or we don't even have to get to a new game. Obviously, we want to touch as many things as possible, but that's just not realistic with the amount of time that we have. We just want to highlight a moment, a play that made us sit up in our seat or just got us super excited, which is easy to do now that we watch the games in person, by the way, because you can sort of timestamp like, oh, Derrik was losing his shit about that. Or like I was pacing around the studio during the end of the Cowboys-Giants game. But one thing I did want to highlight is that in a game that I got very wrong, by the way, I didn't necessarily think the New York Jets would beat the Buffalo Bills, but after an exciting week 1, I would not have been surprised if it was a good game. Forget that, man. The Bills smothered the New York Jets and didn't even really have to get out of second gear to do it. And for as much as we worried about this Buffalo defense, they were all over the Jets. And a big part of that was Joey Bosa looking like it was like 2017. Turned back the clock in a big way.
He was awesome in this game. Like, he had a sack, which was on rookie tight end Mason Taylor, but still, I think you saw like the closing speed after he beat Taylor, which is exactly what you want. That was like the whole point of signing Joey Bosa, is that even if it's only for a limited number of snaps a game, he can give us some juice when we need it. So he had that. He had the Justin Fields punch out fumble, that was awesome.
Fantastic.
Like, Fields ends up like scrambling a little bit to his left and then shoots up to the line of scrimmage, and Joey Bosa, completely relentless, just hunts him down from behind and punches that thing out. I forget who was starting the tackle, but like Bosa, he's going down, punches that out. That was an incredible play. And then even to me, what really felt the most like, this is also kind of like what peak Joey Bosa felt like. At his best, he was a really, really good edge setter. And literally first play of the game, the Jets try to like wide zone out to the left, and Joey Bosa sets the edge, forces it all the way to the boundary. I think they get like 2 yards on it. And that was like, that's what you signed him for. That's what you signed him to do.
We did a show over the summer where I said I was ready to be hurt again. And one of the things I was ready to be hurt by is believing like this is the year that the old Bills edge rusher that they signed in free agency is going to do something. And granted, this is definitely a team that we judge by what happens in January. Still really exciting to see Joey Bosa play that way. Sack, two forced fumbles in this game. I mean, if he can be, and I do think you want to pace yourself and not expose him to injury, because we know that's been his big issue. But if you have that in your back pocket of knowing that Joey Bosa can be that guy at times, maybe that could be the thing that elevates the Bills defense. And I'll just put the Ravens performance off to the side while I think about this and say, we don't have to worry about that for a while.
A little bit of proof of concept that the 8 million resources you put into the front, that's a good sign.
Speaking of the Baltimore Ravens, not super interested in the totality of their beatdown win against Cleveland. Credit to them, it went exactly the way it was supposed to. They're double-digit favorites. They're coming off a disappointing loss. The Ravens have a tendency for theatrics against teams they have no business playing close, and that is not what happened on Sunday. They kicked Cleveland's ass from the word go. Final score was 41-17. Don't really feel like relitigating the whole game here, but one thing you and I got really excited about, DeAndre Hopkins, he's been targeted 4 times so far this season. 4 catches, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 of them being circus catches. Like, we're not asking for a heavy lift here. That's not what DeAndre Hopkins is here to do. But as the wide receiver 3, as the 4th option in this offense, if he can do something sick once or twice a Sunday, it's very fun for us as fans, and it could be very good for the Ravens offense.
That was like always the whole sell, is like, if he's going to get some of what were just like Nelson Aguilar targets in previous versions of this offense, and he can just make 1 or 2 insane plays, whether it's down the field, in the red zone, whatever it is, that is why you sign DeAndre Hopkins. And like, to me, why I think this is beautiful for a number of reasons. One, DeAndre Hopkins was stuck on a lot of really bad teams for a long time. He was stuck on multiple AFC South teams. Obviously, last year he got to play with the Chiefs a little bit, but like I think he was a little bit banged up. He's a little bit closer to the end.
And you come into that offense in the middle of the year, sort of limits
and it was kind of
things.
a stinky offense,
and it wasn't
relatively.
That, yeah. Also, you have no other guys who can elevate you. That's the whole thing. Like Hopkins there's more here to work with than what the Chiefs had as far as skill players go last year.
Yeah, the Chiefs needed DeAndre Hopkins. The Ravens are just like, oh, well, that's a fun thing to add. And so I think there's this cool element of like DeAndre Hopkins, who is this just phenomenal player for like a decade, who is finally getting just the time to go be just a fun little sideshow character on like one of the coolest offenses in the league. I think that that's really compelling. And then I think the other thing to me is like, we have now 2 years in a row where obviously last year, Derrick Henry came into this offense, and I think he had 1 or 2 years with the Tennessee Titans where it was like, he's just kind of running into brick walls, and I don't know how much he's really going to have left in the tank. And the fact that he gets then to go play with Lamar and really have like an offensive player of the year caliber season. Obviously, Saquon Barkley does what he does and kind of takes that crown. But for Henry to kind of have this revival, and then even though it's not obviously to the same level, for Hopkins to be able to come into this offense and show a little bit more juice than he really has in a couple of years again, there's something cool to me about Lamar Jackson being this just like very obvious elevator of other guys around him.
Hopkins turned 33 this summer. He looks amazing. Hopefully this continues all year. You would imagine the end of his career is soon, whether it's in 1, 2, I don't know, maybe you could play 3 more years. Even that kind of feels like a stretch to me, to be honest. So it's very cool to get it one more time. Just like, DeAndre Hopkins is that dude. And the play in the third quarter, I think they wound up not calling it a touchdown. He was ruled down just short of the goal line. You know the play I'm talking about.
That should be a rule of cool. Like, just give it to him.
Either way, I just love Lamar did his Lamar thing. Like he dances around for a little while, and it reminded me of like Steph Curry or a really good 3 shooter in basketball where, I mean, there was a linebacker like closing down, but Lamar Jackson can run and at least pick up a couple yards, even if it's not going to be explosive. Like he just had an easy play and it's only second down. And it reminded me of like Steph just on a fast break, pulling up outside the 3 and just shooting it anyway, even though he has like an easy basket where you're like, this is so low percentage. No, don't do this. Like take the easy layup. Oh, wait, that was awesome. I'm
like,
so glad you did that.
Do that.
Yeah,
that's right.
Fun for everybody involved. I really loved it. One more we want to get to, which it feels a little bit hollow in light of how this game ended, because the Arizona Cardinals wound up hanging on for dear life, which is a theme for them now. They are 2-0. It has been dicier than it should have been at the end of both games. Against Carolina in particular, they win this game 27-22. Couple things go the other way. They absolutely could have wound up losing to a Panthers team that they were annihilating for most of this game. Early on, though, Kyler Murray reminded you why he can be so much fun to watch play football.
He's just one of those guys, when it looks good, like this is just what football is supposed to be. Like he's just an incredibly fun, loose player. And like he had a couple of really nice scrambles in this game. But the big one to me where I was like, this is just what it feels like to watch Kyler Murray at his best. They were in, I think, like the middle, maybe high red zone. And they have this play where they have 3 receivers sit off to the left. The number 3 guy, the inside receiver, runs more of like a bender over to the other side of the field. So it kind of pulls the safety, pulls the middle of the field. And Kyler immediately recognizes, okay, if they're doing that, the guy I have as my number 2 running the bender kind of towards the middle of the post, I'm just going to rip it immediately and put this thing on the back end of the end zone. And he fires an incredible ball to Michael Wilson. And it's just this reminder of like, when Kyler really is like locked in and focused on a given day, his arm talent is truly special. Like the way that he can just cock back and throw it, the way that he can layer certain balls, the way that he can just drive it in there when he needs to. Like he, on a good day, is phenomenal. And granted, I think it's pretty clear that you can still do that against this Panthers defense for as much as they've pumped into it. But for him to at least give us that type of day in an afternoon slate that didn't have a whole lot of other games going on, I thought was it was a very nice reminder for us.
I do love that we also got dumb bad Kyler too, though.
Yeah, you
like
get the full package.
The slipping, stumbling, like shot put interception, which we've talked about this a lot. But if Kyler Murray is like the franchise quarterback Mendoza line, you know, of like as the bar for like me, like whether or not you want to have this guy be your franchise quarterback. I think people would associate that with steady mediocrity, whereas Kyler just darts above and below the line like all day long, where he'll do like 4 things where you say to yourself, this guy's incredible. And then twice a game, you're like, how was that what you decided to do? Kyler, please help me.
Right. It's almost like for the normal, like it used to be the Dalton line. It's like, well, Dalton kind of is what he is for most games. And so if your quarterback generally is above that line, you're probably good. With the Kyler thing, it's more like how many games do you have above the line? And for Kyler, in some seasons, it's like 10 and he's phenomenal and plays like an MVP. And sometimes it's like 5. And like that's kind of the thing. And so usually, but if you have these quarterbacks who 12 times a year they play above that line, it's like, okay, then you're above whatever this Kyler Murray roller coaster version of the Dalton line is.
Arizona scored to make it 27-3 with 9 minutes to play in the third and proceeded to hang on for dear life. So Cardinals next challenge, 2-0, very happy for you. Cardinals next challenge with a road game against the 49ers. Can I get 60 minutes of consistent good play, or just maybe, if not that, then just a better finishing effort, a better final 10 minutes of football from the Arizona Cardinals? We'll see what week 3 holds. One last thing we want to do before we get out of here, and we got plenty more games to cover. Like I said, we can't do it all in a recap show, but we've got the Hangover show coming your way. We'll record that Monday. We'll take your voicemails, plenty more stuff to do. But with the bulk of this out of the way, Derrik, what do you think we learned in week 2? Excuse me. We're already into week 2, buddy. Week 2 of this NFL season.
I mean, I would say for the most part, week 1 can be a mirage. And like, I think that applies to a number of reasons. Obviously, you already kind of joked about it. That Steelers-Jets game. How excited were we to talk about that game after it happened and be like, maybe this means something?
So let's take people inside the production, because I came into the studio after you today and you had the remotes and you were like, what should we watch? Where should things be placed? And I was like, I want Jets Bills, like in a big spot I want it in the prime spot with the least amount of competition. I want it in the 2 box, not the 4 box, because I'm dialed in on Jets Bills. And like 15 minutes later, I was like, I think we can switch this around, like move the Bills Jets game somewhere else.
Turn the volume off for that one. Don't nearly need to be paying attention to that game. Yeah, that game very quickly felt like, oh, that doesn't matter. And then you watch the Steelers do what they do, and you're like, I don't know if a whole lot of what they did in week 1 really matters. And so I think that was a big one. Obviously, you're going to have stuff on the other end, like the Colts offense. It's like, okay, maybe that is a little bit real, but it's like you have some of those games where it's like you have Jets Steelers. It's like we want to immediately make something out of it because it's week 1, which is like, of course, this is fun. And like we want these stalls to mean something, but you got to remember that sometimes it doesn't. And then on the other end, it's like the Lions offense. Sometimes that is a mirage in the sense of like, we just didn't know the Packers defense was like that. Like, when they do it one game, it's like, okay, the Packers defense looks awesome. Are they going to do it again? They go out and play Washington on Thursday and just beat the bricks out of them. We gave the Packers just that good.
We gave the Packers their own show on Thursday, but it bears repeating briefly. Nobody's flying higher after 2 weeks than the Green Bay Packers. And they got a long weekend to rest and recover, by the way. I think that's totally fair. And we didn't prep for this because it was the late game and we had a bunch of other stuff going on. But how do the Vikings feel right now, where you're just like, ooh, okay, we played one good quarter of football, but the other 7 look pretty rough right now, man. I mean, I need to go back and look at this game in more detail, but I saw enough to know that JJ McCarthy didn't quite figure everything out in that 4th quarter at Soldier Field.
The only thing, like, obviously I watched some of that game. I think it's just funny that the Vikings probably did feel okay. Like, okay, he started to play better in the 4th quarter of last week. Like, maybe we can build on that a little bit. Then you take 6 sacks to the Falcons, who are like notoriously have never had a pass rush. And I know they dumped some resources into it, 2 first-round picks, a number of, second and third day picks the last couple of years. But that is not the defense you want to be taking that many sacks against.
A lot of Bears fans working here on our show in a Chicago studio, as you might guess. And it also leads to some very interesting questions about, well, if that's what the Vikings look like right here, what does that say about the Bears?
And if that's what the Lions looked like in week 1, and then they did that to you this week, what does that say about the Bears? Like, it's just a whole lot of what are the Bears right now?
Topics for another show, but it'll have to wait. That'll do it for our week 2 recap. Like I said, we got so much more coming your way. We'll have another show Monday, airing Tuesday. We will take your voicemails. We will dig into a few of the other games from Sunday that didn't quite make it into the recap. Plenty of other interesting stuff going on, by the way. Like I like the Rams Titans come to mind. Mac Jones got a road win against the New Orleans Saints. So other stuff we want to cover, and we'll do that later. But that's all we got for right now. Derrik, thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you next time.